With over 50 million units sold across the world, the Toyota Corolla is one of the most successful car nameplates globally due to its high sales volume. In fact, I just drove the all-new Corolla Cross, which is the company's new subcompact SUV. For a review on that, be sure to click in the link in the description below. However, what if you're looking for just a regular commuter sedan, but you need something with well over 50 miles to the gallon? Well, that's where this vehicle comes in. This is the 2022 Toyota Corolla Hybrid. Introduced 2 years ago, it essentially has the same fuel-efficient powertrain underneath the hood as the Toyota Prius. So if you're looking for a no-frills, inoffensive commuter car that's really affordable to buy, how does the 2022 Toyota Corolla Hybrid stack up? Stay tuned to find out. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this has the same powertrain as the Toyota Prius. So under the hood, we have a 1.8 liter gasoline 4-cylinder engine that runs on the Atkinson cycle. It also is assisted by an electric motor, which this powertrain in the Prius makes it one of the most fuel-efficient models that you can find on the market today. Now, it's certainly very fuel efficient, but it's also not very powerful, especially by modern car standards. When you combine the outputs of the gas engine and the electric motor, you get 121 horsepower and 105 pound-feet of torque. That's actually nearly 20 less horsepower versus the standard gas-only 1.8 liter engine in the base Corolla. Remember, this engine here runs on the more efficient Atkinson cycle, which is why it makes less horsepower. And Toyota also stuffs it with a very, very small lithium-ion battery pack and a small electric motor. In fact, compared to the direct competition, which is the Honda Insight or the Hyundai Ioniq, the old one, this has less power than both of those, nearly 30 less horsepower than something like the Honda Insight, and about 20 less horsepower than the Hyundai Ioniq Hybrid. Now, of course, it all goes out through a CVT transmission, and all Corolla hybrids are only front-wheel drive. That's something that the Prius offers, is all-wheel drive from its additional electric motor that powers the rear end. Now, of course, fuel economy is exactly why you buy something like this. It's rated to get 53 in the city, 52 on the highway, about 52 combined, which is, again, the same as a Prius. As this one sits, it weighs in at around just over 3,000 pounds. Toyota says you should get to 60 eventually. Well, more like around 10-ish seconds. Let's talk about the styling really quick, because when Toyota first dropped off this car at my house a couple of days ago, I literally thought to myself, well, it looks like my new rental car has arrived. Okay, that may be a little bit harsh, but let's be honest here. The Corolla Hybrid is only available in this baser looking LE trim. You can't go for a Corolla SE or an XSE in the Hybrid, which I think is a mistake, because the LE, as you can see, the design definitely is pretty ordinary looking. You have this big, bold grille at the front. Remember, Toyota introduced this generation Corolla a couple years ago. It rides on the TNGA-C platform. At least all the hybrids come with their full LED headlights with LED daytime running lights and turn signals. And you also have LED low and high beams. No fog lights on the Hybrid. This one here, painted this nice red exterior color. I believe it's called Ruby Flare. It definitely makes this car stand out a little bit more, but again, it just looks very ordinary, very rental car-ish from the ordinary look of this vehicle and just the simplicity of it. Now, of course, some of you may prefer that, because these wheels, these are a 15-inch alloy wheel, if you can believe it. It actually just has a steel, or it has a plastic wheel cover over it. They're wrapped in very, very eco-minded 195/65 R15 tires. Those are going to be really easy to replace. They're going to be cheap to replace, and it's going to give this car a pretty comfortable ride quality. Now, looking at the rest of the profile, you can see the size hasn't changed. It's about 182 inches long. The Corolla is now on the longer end of the compact segment. And if you're looking for features like a sunroof or turn signal indicators on the mirrors, not available on the Corolla Hybrid, sadly. So that's something to keep in mind if you guys want to go for the gas-only version. Now, looking at the rest of the rear over here, you can see, again, looking for that spoiler on the SE or XSE, not available here. You just have a very subtle Corolla Hybrid badge at the back here. The exhaust tip looks a little cheap as it kind of points downward there. And in terms of the trunk capacity, the Corolla doesn't even have a trunk release actually back here. Actually, just kidding. It does have a trunk release, a little hard to find, but just like the regular Corolla, the trunk space is not intruded by, at least. You get 13.1 cubic feet of space, and those seats also fold down in a 60/40 manner, which is nice. And then if you look underneath here, Toyota does not give you a spare tire, however. You just have a fix-a-flat kit and an air compressor. Let's briefly take a look at the interior of the 2022 Corolla Hybrid. Now, first of all of them come standard with Toyota's smart key access system with push-button start, which is nice. I was expecting a car that looks like this on the outside to have a traditional switchblade key where you have to stick it in. Thankfully, the intelligent key is standard, and my tester here with the Barcelona red or the whatever red that this is called, with this two-tone lighter interior with the gray and the kind of like a lighter gray. Definitely makes it look a little bit more upscale. There is a new premium interior package that will roll in the soft text leather with a power driver seat, heated seats, and a leather wrapped wheel. As you can see, this just has the urethane non-leather wrapped wheel, which definitely feels a little bit cheap. Door panel materials, hard touch plastic here, which is what I expect. Slightly soft touch over on the lower part where your elbows would rest. Now getting inside, the Corolla definitely has a lower step-in height versus the last Prius that I sat in. It all has to do with the design. When I shut the door has a slightly tinny sound to it, which is just like the gas car. The button here to turn on everything on is right where you expect it. The wheel actually doesn't even block it. You can still see it when you're sitting back here. And at least Toyota did include some of the tech features that buyers want. You have the 7-inch digital display here, which has a mixture of analog and digital. You have the 8-inch Toyota Entune system. I don't even think they call it Entune anymore. It does have wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The Android Auto was added in 2021, so this year basically, which is nice to have, but I wish that Toyota again gave it, or I wish Toyota had wireless Apple CarPlay, which they will be having in their next gen system. But as you can see here with the floating tablet screen, it's a rather thick screen bezel. It's very similar, of course, to the one that you'll find in the RAV4 and the Camry. Materials here, you can see soft touch injection molded plastic, soft touch over here. They're perfectly acceptable, but it doesn't feel luxurious. I wouldn't say it feels luxurious. At least you have Toyota's safety senses standard, so you have blind spot monitoring with your cross traffic alert, automatic emergency braking, adaptive cruise control. Speaking of which, this steering wheel adjusts, tilt, and telescopes with a good amount of adjustability. The seats feel pretty comfortable as well. I like the cloth. As much as I hate cloth seats, they actually feel pretty supportive and nice. You have single zone automatic climate control, no wireless phone charging pad here. You have your drive mode selector here between eco, normal, and power, which is their sport setting. You also have this little feature here where you can see where the power is going. This, again, Toyota has been using this screen for years. This graphic for years, although it has been slightly updated to look a little bit nicer. If you're looking for factory GPS, this car does not offer it. Instead, you'll be plugging in your phone to use the Apple CarPlay, which is fine. Put the car into reverse, you can see there's your backup camera. Very basic looking. It doesn't even have trajectory. So again, Toyota didn't really want to give you everything in this car because they're trying to keep it to a price point. A lot of piano black plastic trim here, cup holders, decent sized center console, although this lid feels a little flimsy and cheap, which I'm not surprised considering the price point. Opening this glove box, you can see it's a bin style. It's damped but not lined with felt. So overall, the interior offers no frills, decent tech, a good amount of space, but remember, the outside isn't exciting looking, and the same is kind of true when you look at the interior. Now hopping into the back seat, the Corolla Hybrid's rear is basically the same as the gas-only version, which means you do have a back seat that's a little bit on the smaller side when you compare it to the rest of the segment. As you can see, the two-tone interior definitely gives the back seat a little bit more of a brighter look to it. Getting back here, you can see I do have to duck my head pretty bad because the roof here slants a good bit. And then when I get back here and shut the door, you can see the LE doesn't come with any rear seat air vents, no power outlets, of course, no heated back seats. Don't expect any of that. Hard touch plastic materials, but at least it is slightly padded over here. You have one map pocket, and you do have a nice folding down armrest here, but the headrests back here, they're not actually adjustable, they're just fixed. And Toyota says you get around 35 inches of legroom back here, which is fine. No flat floor here, although it's almost flat. So overall, if you're looking for the bigger back seat, the Prius actually is the one that offers more rear seat space. All right, so I've established that the Corolla Hybrid is one of the most boring and basic looking of the hybrid commuter cars available, but looks may not be a big deal for some of you, so they're always subjective. I do wish Toyota offered the Corolla Hybrid in the SE or an XSE form, but still for 2022, they do offer that premium interior package, so you can finally get it with a leather-wrapped wheel, heated seats, and a power driver's seat with soft tex faux leather as opposed to these cloth seats, which kind of make this car feel a little bit like a rental car. But when I first drove the Corolla a few years ago, or 2 years ago when this car came out, I found it to be a way more appealing car than something like a Toyota Prius. The Prius in general is just so ugly, I can't deal with the styling of it, but instead we have the Prius's powertrain, which means the Corolla Hybrid is the least powerful of all the Corolla models. Now the beauty about it is it does get the best gas mileage, and you can also creep it along in EV only. However, the battery pack is so puny in this car. So for example, I have it in EV mode right now, and you can literally see it will creep along like this at up to about 20 miles an hour. So you can see with the little display there, it'll show you when it's doing the regen braking. But anytime you basically put your foot a little bit harder on the accelerator, let me first actually just accelerate from a stop here slowly. It will take off on just EV alone, which is cool. And this is just a mild, or it's a full hybrid, but it's not a plug-in hybrid. But anytime you go, there we go, speed exceeded. So anytime you go above 20 miles an hour, the car basically says, nope, you need to actually use the engine because this is just a regular hybrid. It's not a plug-in hybrid. So it would have been nice if Toyota had given this thing like the powertrain from the Prius Prime and given us that bigger battery pack. But the fact is you can essentially get over 50 mpg in a car that doesn't look as hideous as the Prius, but it's definitely no looker either. This is a very bland looking car. I think the inside looks a lot better, but in typical Toyota Prius Toyota hybrid fashion, it's a rather noisy experience when you are driving this thing. It is very much a buzzy engine. It's a 1.8 liter engine, which makes a lot of noise, but let's go ahead and see how long it takes this thing to get to 60. 0 to 60 is yes, eventually, but let's see how long for shits and giggles. Okay, here we go. It's in power mode, still accelerating. 0 to 60 in 10.28 seconds. Toyota, I think, said like around the 10-ish second mark, so it's not the point of this car. You're not buying it for insanely fast 0 to 60 numbers, but it's will eventually get there. The one thing about this car, though, is it is slow, but it's got a very responsive CVT at least. My foot goes to the floor here and it will quickly raise the revs up, but it just doesn't have much power. I mean, 121 horsepower, 105 pound-feet of torque, that is nothing. Even in today's modern car standards by econo boxes, this is slow. This has almost 20 less horsepower than the base 1.8 in the Corolla, so it's confusing to me that Toyota didn't want to up the power of this. It is definitely due for more power. The beauty, of course, is I've been averaging a little over 50 miles to the gallon in my week's worth of testing, so really great gas mileage, and this thing is really easy to drive. I mean, yes, it's not sporty feeling, especially with these 15-inch eco-minded tires on it, but the steering is quite quick and precise, actually. You have Toyota's Safety Sense 2.0 is standard in this car, so you have adaptive cruise control, auto emergency braking, lane keep assist, although I really hate the way the lane keep assist works, how it just beeps when you drive over it. It doesn't actually push you back in the lane. And the seats, even though these are the cloth seats, I would prefer the Softex. They are relatively comfortable. This car is really easy to drive. If you're just looking for a commuter car that's not going to get any attention wherever you go, this is what you buy, and it's also going to get damn good gas mileage as well. I wasn't expecting that. But, oh, geez, it's so sluggish at this point here because it doesn't have enough horsepower. And you feel a vibration for the engine through the pedals, or through the steering wheel, through the pedals, through the seats. So again, in a world full of all-electric cars, even you could get something like a Chevrolet Bolt, a Nissan Leaf would be cheaper, or about the same price when you factor in the tax credits for some of those vehicles. And I mean, it is definitely, it feels like driving yesterday's technology. Toyota could do so much more with this car, but of course they're trying to appeal to a price point. They're trying to appeal to the buyers who want something that's going to last a long time without any issues, and this certainly feels like it will. It definitely feels like a tank. But I can't help but criticize Toyota for just playing it safe here. I mean, even the design is safe looking. The interior has the tech features that I expect in it, and it is well priced. So I can't fault this car for being an honest to good commuter car for somebody who just wants something that's going to take you from point A to B. But as an enthusiast, as somebody who reviews cars and drives all different cars, I can't help but notice even something like the Honda Insight, a car that isn't really selling all that well, is more appealing versus this vehicle. And if you guys are willing to spend a little bit more, people are really snatching up hybrid SUVs. That's essentially what people want nowadays. The RAV4 Hybrid just flies off the shelves, and it has way more power than this. And Toyota's own Camry Hybrid is more appealing as well. You get more back seat room. It is more expensive, of course, but the new fully loaded versions of the Corolla with the premium interior package, they can be around $27,000, which is a little expensive for something that looks as boring as this does. But overall, I think this car just makes sense if you want a sedan, a commuter car that's just very under the radar, very safe, very economical, very cheap to buy and to own. It offers very little to no frills, but it will get the job done, and that's the exact mission of this Corolla Hybrid. So while some of you may think that I'm being a little too harsh by calling this car a little bit more rental car-ish in its design, that is a very subjective thing. Yes, do I wish Toyota offered this car in a more sportier looking SE and XSE trim? Absolutely. However, the company wanted to keep the price down, and if this is exactly what you're looking for, a no frills, fly under the radar, inexpensive to buy and drive commuter car, that's exactly what the Corolla Hybrid delivers, and it also looks a ton better versus the current generation Prius. So if I was comparing this car to a regular Prius, I would probably just go for this. Even though the Prius is a liftback, it's a little bit more practical. It is still one of the ugliest looking cars that I've seen that has been out for quite some time now. So obviously, I think this is the easier pick. Now, of course, after spending the week with it, what are my final thoughts? It gets great gas mileage, impressive range. When Toyota dropped this off, it had almost 600 miles on a full tank. And remember, this isn't a plug-in hybrid, it's just a regular hybrid. The 0 to 60 time of 10.5 seconds is really slow, but that's not the point of a vehicle like this. At least Toyota has done a great job with tuning the refinement of the CVT and the gas and electric motor. They all work together very harmoniously. And even though the engine is buzzy, it is all very smooth. It has very smooth transitions, and it shows that Toyota knows exactly how to tune a hybrid vehicle. And of course, there's the beauty about this car is the price. The Corolla Hybrid starts at $23,650. It's about $3,000 more than a comparable gas-only version of the Corolla, and you get roughly 10 to 12 mpg improvement over the base Corolla. So that's a huge improvement. As long as you're okay with a slower acceleration, you're essentially getting this for a deal. My tester here, without the premium package, stickers for just under $25,000 with destination, which again makes this an enticing car. It's less expensive versus something like the Honda Insight, which can easily get to $30,000 for the fully loaded versions. But I'd argue the Honda looks a lot more premium, a lot more sporty, which if Toyota would offer this in the SE or XSE version or a plug-in hybrid, I wouldn't expect this car to also, or I would expect it to also get a little bit more expensive as well. It's really gonna come down to what your specific taste and budgets are. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2022 Toyota Corolla Hybrid. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.